Pretty Little Liars Original Sin sentence deals with disturbing and problematic topics. We provided a list of content warnings in the episode description. Should just change that to definitely deals with some disturbing and problematic topics.
I was thinking
Hello and welcome to Dead Ends. I'm Emily.
I'm Brenton.
And we have the first episode of Pretty Little Liars Original Sin.
Mm-hmm.
Because Brenton likes to talk about all the other things. Like the production.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about production stuff.
Yesterday he was like, can you look up the production stuff? And I just like looked at him and I was like,
What do you mean?
what do you want? Like, yeah, but like what, he's like, you know, like the, like where they filmed or the when it was greenlit and when they, and who and what. And I'm like, I guess, like, do you care about that? But he does. And I think a lot of people do.
Uh-huh.
I just, for me personally, I'm always like, when you're like production, I'm like, what was it? That they built sets? Like they did props? Like I want to know more about like the hair and makeup shit or like how you do like prop injuries. Like those are always like, you know, like when you see those in like a behind the scenes, like that's what's interesting to me.
Yeah, so at least from my perspective, when you're finding directors, creators and stuff, it gives context of like why this is being created this way and that sort of thing. And how do you put it in?
Director and creator, because it's like, okay, how does this tie in? Because we're going to tie this into the Archieverse and kind of like a crossover between the Pretty Little Liars universe and the Archieverse. But yeah, I just was laughing because I'm like, what is that? What are production?
What are production? Which will be, I'm very glad that we decided to do Riverdale after this and the whole Archieverse, because there's definitely going to be a lot of parallels that will then come home to, that'll be more apparent as we do those shows in the future. Essentially, we're doing, Roberto, is it Aguirre or Aguirre? Sakasso is like pantheon of shows.
Yes.
It's all him. And where was I going with that?
I'm really excited about that because Sabrina, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, I think is one of the best like of his creations. But I would be interested revisiting Riverdale to see how I feel about that.
Mm-hmm. And I think this show has the most parallels that you can draw between how you approach the show, like horror for between this and Sabrina. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, like to compare to?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So my big thing with this show so far, I'm not loving it yet. It's only one episode.
Mm-hmm.
My issue is I'm not really a horror girly. What I am is if I'm watching horror, it better be camp. Like I want it to be a comedy horror. I want this to be a silly, goofy time that's also like a little bit boo, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this is obviously just like true horror. And so that's not really my vibe. It doesn't feel as fun yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a girl. I just want to have fun.
Yeah, I understand.
Me and Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah, to like, put it in context, like Sabrina will be this when we get there. Because it's like...
They start with like these jokes of like that they're going to eat people. You know what I mean? Like straight up they're witches and they're eating people. But they're not actually, you know...
Right. It'll be like, oh, Aunt Hilda, you left this body on the table. Like, this is getting in the way and rotting. I can't believe you'd do that. And you kick it out. Another good example of what we recently watched is Lisa Frankenstein.
Yes.
In my head, I have no idea why. It is a poison. I always want to call Mona Lisa Frankenstein. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with anything. Knock that off.
It's giving Mona.
Right, where she builds a boyfriend and the boy and like they go on a killing spree, but like it's all like silly and goofy and like light.
Yeah, it was really fun. That's a great movie. If you haven't seen Lisa Frankenstein, you should. Yeah. If you're into that, obviously. If you're bothered by like the gore, even like the joking gore, it's not for you. Mm-hmm. But I had a lot of fun with that. Yeah. That's what I think. Like that's the mood I'm in. Like that's my version of horror. And so like with this, I'm like. Yeah, it's just serious.
Not hitting you. Yeah.
It's not hitting in the same way. But we're only one episode in.
Totally.
And there also aren't that many episodes.
Yeah, we'll be doing it's 18 total?
Between the two seasons?
Yeah, I think the second season's 8. It's 10 this. I'll have to double check that. But when I was looking at credits for the co-creators, for Lindsay Calhoun, who Roberto created this with, it was listed for 18 episodes. So I think it's just 18.
Okay.
Yeah, on the opposite end, I am eating this up. I am hooting and hollering. I am here for it. Every single part of this, I am so excited by the entire thing. So then I was like, okay, as much as you want to get onto the second episode right now, and as much as you want to talk about as much of the show as possible, you should probably check with Emily. We should stop here because there's going to be a lot to talk about. Well,
because you want to talk about like all those other details and stuff. So I think, and things like this.
And I also have lots of things to talk about specifically in this episode. So I'm like, oh, if we run long on one episode, that's just going to gum things all up. Which I might, because I have a lot of thoughts.
I only have a lot of thoughts and feelings about a handful of things.
And, it's not perfect. I want to say that. Like, I'll definitely have criticisms that pop up, but it is mean. Everything.
I like that it's mean.
Yeah.
I like mean. I like mean girl energy. Obviously, we love Pretty Little Liars.
That's right.
You love Mona.
Yes.
Say we love Mona, but it's really you.
Can you guess who my favorite character is? Like from the bat on this show, it's Karen.
You were like, I love Karen, and I'm like, Imogen's my girl.
Yeah, Karen is horrible. Like, I don't want to put that out. Like, not in terms of like, wow, what an amazing character, but because it's a fake person we're watching on TV show. Like, I'd hate this person in real life, but she is amazing.
I was going to say, what does it say about the person you chose to marry? No. Like, I love the bitch.
No, it's just, it's the type of characters that I find most interesting in the show because there's layers to Karen too that I can like talk about too. Like, especially in comparison to her twin of just, she's a wannabe Regina George, but she doesn't have it like Regina George. And so she's just mean and spiteful because she's insecure and can't get what she wants. And her like quieter sister Kelly, as far as we know, is literally dancing circles around her in terms of this like thing. So, but this is all done really good. I want to shout out the actor Mallory, I'm assuming Bechtel, just killing it.
It is really good. No, she does a really good mean girl. They all do really well.
Yeah, across the board.
Yeah, it's, we got our 19 to 20. I mean, I guess when it first came out, this was 3 years ago. So they were probably like in their like early 20s playing their teenagers, and they're actually in true television fashion.
That's right.
It feels right. But yeah, no, I don't hate it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not mad about watching it. I'm just like, I'm not feeling it yet.
Right.
I'm interested because I know the twist.
Oh.
And so I watched Mike's recap on this when it first came out. He did like a PR thing, or maybe not when it first came out. I don't know what it was. He did like I think like a collaboration with HBO where he did a recap.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was with HBO to do it.
Good for
Mike. I could be wrong. Go look it up. Tell me if I'm wrong. If you want the plot, if you don't want spoilers, I wouldn't suggest watching that.
Right.
But I watched that because I was like, oh, it's a little horror-y. I probably won't watch it. And we were already, I think, doing our Pretty Little Liars podcast. So I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to get to watch this for so long that like it doesn't matter. And but yeah, so I know the twists. Or I think I know the twist. I know what the perceived twist is, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much is confirmed.
Okay.
So I'm intrigued, but I also don't really know, like, who A is. Like, the big, like, I know, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Like
I don't specific character sort of thing?
Yeah, and, like,
I don't
like,
have motivation sort of thing?
No, the opposite.
Oh, okay.
Like, let's say, like, I know, like, a name. It's like the Charles thing. Let's say it's, like, Charles again, and I'm like, I know
the professor.
Charles. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what I know. So it's not helpful. But I do know the one of the twists.
Okay.
So I'm intrigued. I'm waiting for that. I also wish, like, I don't feel like I have enough investment in A.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just like, yeah, it's like, oh, all of their moms obviously did something real sketchy in 1999 and made a girl feel like she was invisible. Probably drugged her. That was my assumption.
Yeah.
And then she killed herself. And now someone is going around and like tormenting at least who had been the main girl, but we assume like all of the moms because all of the girls are being tormented.
Right.
So it's just like I don't have enough to like be like, oh, I care who that is. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. It's the mechanism of this episode is about setting up the horror characters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we're getting a lot of their individual traumas, but their individual things that are happening in these girls' lives is not really what's related to the A thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how other people are just like absolutely, in many cases abusing these kids. Whereas the A thing is their parents. Like the parents are the Pretty Little Liars, and
yes,
they are something different, which is what I find interesting also about this. It's like, okay, say more. But it's not the thing that I immediately latched onto. So I'm like, oh, look at all these horrible people that are probably going to die.
But it kind of like makes the girls like the innocents instead of like in the original Pretty Little Liars, those girls were bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had done shit.
Yeah.
Not necessarily bad. Like they were teenagers, but they had done shit. There was the Jenna thing. They already had committed some crimes.
Right.
In this case, these girls are mostly, from what we understand, innocent victims.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing some weird shit. Looking at you, Tabby. So who's to say? But we'll get into that later. But they like it's a different angle, and so I'm not. Which it should be. Like, you shouldn't remake a show to redo the same thing. Like, I appreciate that. I'm just, like, not bought in yet because it's different. Does that make sense?
No, I completely understand.
I like change, but I'm a little adverse to it.
This is all... Fair enough. But that specific piece, like you're mentioning, the wider mystery has not really been fully established yet. It's all in the background. This is all just getting the pieces together. Whereas like the pilot for PLL is like, you have your A, you have your friends all together.
Yeah.
This is the friends are all together. We don't know why. There's a Leatherface running around. Is that A sending text? Maybe. What's going on with the parents? Like there's a lot of things happening. So I completely understand like that leaving people cold.
The one thing, well, there's many things I really like, but one thing I really appreciate is from the bat, we are setting in stone that the 30-year-old man who thinks the high schooler is mature for her age is a fucking creep.
Absolutely fucking creep. I didn't know, because actor's playing. I'm like, I don't know who it is. But then when he says, oh, Ari Aster and I are the same age. So it takes place in 2021. Ari Aster's 38 now. He's 35.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. It's fantastic.
It is one of those shows I feel like kind of like when you watch Gilmore Girls, like if we had all had cell phones during Gilmore Girls, there would have been so much more like Googling like what the lines meant. And so I do feel like there's more of that with this. And I think if you're not, it's really smart in that way. Like I appreciate that. I don't think that that's a bad thing. But it does bring me to some complaints about dance, which we can get to when we talk about Farron, because I just have some thoughts.
Yeah. And the writer, Roberto, that I'm specifically referring to, does this a lot with, as you'll see if you've seen the other Riverdale stuff and shows, which we'll be covering future, lots of references to movies and TV shows and stuff. I read an article today in the New York Times from like 2018, kind of profiling him in connection to Riverdale and Sabrina, and they were even saying like part of his like personality in person was like just like nonstop references in like writers' rooms and stuff. So that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. I think it tilts. I mostly like it, but I think it tilts a little bit too much, and it's like you're suffocating Tabby without a character. She's like constantly being like, oh, and this and this and this,
because she likes movies. She is like. It's also like, instead of the girls being like, you know how they kind of are like Winnie the Pooh listed off by Allison? It's like, you were nice and you were kind and you were...
Or like Wizard of Oz. You have
energy. Yeah. Wizard of Oz is another reference too. I was thinking of Winnie the Pooh from like the Calm meditations that are Pooh is Wu Wei and Piglet is anxiety and Rabbit is worry and Tigger is energy, or I can't remember what it is, probably focus.
Right.
But yeah, so it's kind of like that, where it's like we've got Tabby is movies and Mouse is techno boy toy, but she's a girl. And
Farron
is dance and Noah is bad girl.
Mm-hmm.
She's bad in air quotes. She's got an ankle monitor.
Mm-hmm.
Scandalous.
Absolutely.
And Imogen is like our kind of like like popular girl, but like fallen kind of, but not. I don't know. It's interesting.
Or Veronica Mars.
She's kind of like a Veronica Mars.
Except she like is more open and warm to people.
Yeah, and it seems like she has friends and had friends. It's also interesting because the girls aren't necessarily all friends.
It's only Imogen and Tabitha.
Like the other ones know each other, but they're not like close. But yeah, so lots to dig into.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to ramble.
Yeah. So
should you get started?
Get it going.
Did we miss anything at the beginning?
Production stuff?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll just quickly cover it. So this was greenlit in 2020. So for context, Perfectionist is canceled in 2019. Warner Brothers moves fast.
I will say this is interesting, and so it makes me wonder, like, was one of the reasons why The Perfectionist wasn't renewed was because they were like, oh, we've got this other idea and this other Pretty Little Liars show. But it's a completely different network.
Right.
Which serves the show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You mentioned doing the content warning. That, I don't know, maybe I'll leave it in. But that it's like, really look at the content warnings for this.
It's not like may contains. It's like definitely contains disturbing images and concepts and a lot of things that can be triggering.
Yeah, absolutely. Some intense stuff here, and then lots of cursing. You see Hog. There's a lot like going on.
You see Hog?
In Tabitha's video.
I missed that.
Yeah, there's just naked guys.
I saw their butts.
Oh yeah, there's like one. There's like one that like turns around.
Oh.
I
must have looked down to write my notes. I missed it.
See, penis.
Okay.
So yeah, this is definitely on the mature like teen drama
HBO.
for sure. Yeah, exactly.
Is it a teen drama? Or is it supposed to be like an early 20s drama? Do you think?
I say teen drama because it takes place at high school.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if it would have been better served to be placed in a college.
This is also this is in the pantheon of like Euphoria, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Also,
but who is Euphoria for?
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky of like who's the audience for it. Definitely older. But when it's like the focus is on,
it's almost like the new adult concept in writing, but it's not. New adult's not focused on teens and kids. It's focused on like
20-year-olds.
Yeah, fresh adults.
Yeah. So it's an interesting place there. And then, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that this is like older teens and stuff, right? Like this is your rated R.
Yeah, that's a good call. It's a 17. It's a rated R.
Yeah. And you can correct me on this because you are the one that watched it all the way through. I can't remember if I was sick or if you were sick and I was working and why I was only half paying attention. But like Heathers.
Oh. I mean, the Heathers was just fun.
Right. But that's also like more on the edge. Not quite as much like this, but like I'm thinking
it was more on the edge of like, I feel like campy gore.
Right.
I think there was some sexual content. I don't really remember like that. That's not what I remember. I remember like there's very specific scenes because I watched this maybe like 3-4 years ago. It was in 2020. That's why I was unemployed. Or I was furloughed.
Right.
So I was watching movies and you were working.
That's right. All right. So that makes sense. I was like, why was it that you were just watching a show? Got it. So that was like, I'm like, I don't know if that quite maps 1-to-1, but like we
know the Heathers is a reference point for him though, because there's a Riverdale episode that they do the Heathers musical.
Oh, right.
And they use the songs from the Heathers musical.
Well, and their plan is to kill Karen.
Yeah.
It's Heathers right there. So yeah, lots of content warnings there. We'll be going forward with the summary, but real quick. Yeah. So greenlit in 2020. This aired in 2022. So they brought on the Riverdale's hot at this point. Riverdale's probably going into its 5th season, I think, at this point. So that is created by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa. And again, if I'm mispronouncing that. And then who, with all of his shows, is like, except for Katie Keene, is the creator, at least one of the creators, head writer, the like producer, like does everything across the board pretty much.
He's very involved.
And in that New York Times article, he is visiting the set of like Riverdale and Sabrina because that's like the first season of Sabrina was out. And there's like a quote of like from Lily Reinhart who plays Betty on Riverdale, for those who don't know. She's saying like, yeah, he's like a friend. He's like always around and very involved. So it's like interesting because he's also the chief commercial officer for Archie Comics. I had thought that was because of this. And then I looked at it. He got that he became the chief commercial officer in 2014. So ahead of Riverdale. And that was off the back of like his work on Archie Comics. Also a longtime playwright, and his like masters, I think at like Yale, had put on an Archie play where I think Archie comes out as gay and got a cease and desist from Archie Comics.
Yeah, that was like a big part of his like lore. I've seen that part.
Which is very fun. And then this is co-created with Lindsay Calhoun, who co-wrote it, and she had previously written for Sabrina, so this is someone he worked with. And then Marlene, you'll notice, is the exec producer. So I don't know how much she's involved or if that's just like a credit for like her past work on PLL and heading it up. But absent from the list was Joseph Doherty and Oliver Goldstick, who are producers and creators on the previous Pretty Little Liars series, including Ravenswood. And then actually for this episode too, speaking of production design, the director is Lisa Soper, who does a few episodes in this season, but also does the finale. Was the production designer on Sabrina, but not for this. So I thought that was really cool.
This is also the only Pretty Little Liars like follow-up show or like spin-off, technically, that gets a second season. The only one that's been successful.
That's true. Yeah. I could see why. I can also see why this would capture some people's attention, even if you aren't familiar with PLL.
You don't need to know anything about Pretty Little Liars to understand this show.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
You just get some nods of like, why is all the A's written in red?
Well, but there's something between Karen and Imogen about that, because Imogen says she left a note, or like, she left evidence that only I would be able to see or whatever. And I assumed it was the A. Yeah,
because it flashes to the A written in her mom's blood on the bathtub. All right. So episode 1, we'll just call it by chapters. Chapter 1, Spirit Week. In the town. So I took this I took this from the fandom wiki. Thank you for copying them in. And also thank you for looking up all the production notes.
You're welcome. I just needed direction. You looked at me like I had 3 heads when I asked you. Like I just looked at you. I was like, what do you mean?
What do you mean you're not in my head?
You're like, the production. And I'm like, the show was made in 2021.
It came out.
Yeah. People were cast. Watch the show. It's produced. I felt very dumb, but
available for you. Yeah. Why didn't you know my thoughts?
I'm sure most people would have understood. I just was not on that page.
No, I understand.
I was still ranting about Alvin Ailey and ABT.
Hey,
and Swan Lake.
A little preview for you coming up. This is like one of those like live shows where it's hey, stick around, in an hour we're gonna have that special guest coming out.
In an hour Emily's gonna have an aneurysm.
But you took this from the fandom wiki for me, and then I edited it down because they are telling a story.
There's a narrative involved in that wiki. Whoever wrote that, I'm like, you get it.
Right. So I edited it down a little bit just because I need to tell you just what happened. And I don't really need a lot of the adjectives of like, in the unassuming town of Millwood. I'm like, citation needed there.
Well, and also so Imogen, this is not, I don't know if it'll be in the summary. Imogen lives across the street from a cemetery.
Oh, it is not in the summary. So.
And I thought that was such a fun detail that is like glossed right over. Not mentioned, not brought up. And I'm like, see, this is the shit I like. Like, I'm like, ooh.
Why? Oh, cemetery. What does that mean?
Yeah, like, is that...
Haunted by death.
Yeah, like, did her mother choose that on purpose? Like, is her mother haunted by someone in that cemetery? Like, what's going on here? And instead it's just like, Imogen can't go in the house because she has trauma, which is valid. Don't get me wrong. She found her mother dead. But also, the timeline of her mother being dead is very fast.
Oh, yeah, it's just a month later.
Oh, no, sorry. I mean, like, literally the time of, like, her and Karen walking up to her room, looking in her closet. The fact that, like...
fill up the entire tub.
Yeah, I'm like, this is a lot. But sorry, summary, and then we can... these are my thoughts. They're just coming.
That's right. In the town of Millwood, This is in Pennsylvania. A young girl calls out in despair for Sydney Hawthorne.
Sorry, one more thing. So I believe the connection with not Ravenswood, Rosewood, is that this is like, not far away, but across the tracks kind of energy. You know what I mean?
Yep. I like it. Yeah, because this is a town that is not
They've got an
fancy.
Amtrak running through it.
Exactly.
They show a train running through, and it's not even a freight train.
That's so good.
It might have just been like a New York like public transportation train, but it looked like an Amtrak for me. So I was like, oh, there you go. I love Amtrak.
It's so funny.
Me and Joe Biden.
Yeah, thank you for your service, Amtrak.
I just love Amtrak.
Oh yeah, me too. I love Amtrak. Love a train.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, but this is not a town. This is not a fancy town.
No.
Like all the buildings are old. All the houses are old. The school is all old. We'll talk about some of the clashes with this in a little bit.
But later. They have a pre-professional ballet class.
Yes.
Where they dress like professionals. Anyway, sorry. I digress.
Yep. She calls out for Sydney Hawthorne, known as Sid, and Davy Adams. They're outside a warehouse, rave. They seem like we get a first person POV shot. They seem obviously blurry, their vision, something's up. But this is Angela Waters. She stumbles inside and she's begging everybody for help, but literally no one will look at her. She finds Sid and drops to her knees in the middle of the crowd. Davy then mutters to Sid that they've talked about this already and will leave it alone, and forces Sid to join her and the other friends. They're a group of 5. Leaving Angela crying on the floor. Angela finds a ladder nearby and climbs up. And then as the countdown is going because it's New Year's for the rave, they look up and see her silhouette from the rafters. Angela screams out to the girls below if they finally see her. Davy yells at her to stop, but Angela raises her arms and steps forward. The crowd disperses with screams of terror, and then the 5 girls remain and take in Angela's dead body on the floor. 22 years later, so we're now in 2021. A pregnant Imogen Adams dines with her mom, Davy. So Davy holds her daughter's hand, asking if she wants to burn, quote unquote, her things in revenge for being a fair weather friend. There's a knock at the door, and Imogen opens it to find Karen Beasley, who announces that her boyfriend Greg is in the car, so it shouldn't take long. It's tense between them, and Karen hands Davy a letter that was out front that has the A in her name in red. So her name Davy's on the front, and then the A's red. Davy opens the letter to find the flyer for the rave that occurred 22 years earlier. Imogen notices her mom acting weird, but Davy brushes it off and tells him to go upstairs. As they leave, Davy flips the flyer over and reads a message on the back that says, "Gone but not forgotten. You can't ignore the past forever. The countdown is on." Davy flashes back to that night, and then upstairs, Karen runs through Imogen's closet, taking her clothes back. Imogen begs Karen to understand that Greg kissed her first, not vice versa. Karen refuses to listen, confronting Imogen that she kissed Greg at her own party. Karen tries to storm off, but finds the hallway floor wet. The girls slowly walk down the hallway to the bathroom, and then Imogen pushes open the door to find her mother dead in a tub, overflowing with muddy water, and then there's a letter A drawn on the wall. Karen screams. 1 month later. Imogen is now staying at the Hawthorne house, which is Tabby and Sid, her mom Sid. Tabby compliments how good her mom looks and asking if she has a date later, but Sid brushes off and asks what she wants for dinner. Tabby tells her she's working late. Sydney notices that this is something that has been a trend lately, and Sid also needs Imogen to drop off her old keys at the old house because she's selling it. Tabby says she wants to give Imogen space to grieve. Upstairs, Imogen tearfully looks through her mother's picture book, but then heads downstairs, and Sid asks if she's sure she wants to go back to school, and Imogen is determined and wants to distract herself and says her mom would want her to. Sid replies she would have done anything for her mom and flashes back to, again, her reaction staring at Angela's dead body. Tabby offers to walk Imogen and picks up the keys to Imogen's house. As on their way there, Tabby's like, I didn't know our moms were friends. And Imogen's like, well, I didn't know either. And it's like, wait, but my mom never really talked about her high school years. Tabby says Imogen is brave for going back to school, though Imogen assures her she'll just be the freak of the week until some other kid whose life is more fucked up than hers takes the spot. Outside her house, Imogen can't bear to get herself to walk up to the front steps, and Tabby goes and drops off the keys. As they leave, a figure ominously stares out the screen front window. They go to school and see that Spirit Week has commenced. Inside, Karen and her friend Sandy sit at Karen's Spirit Queen ballot table and notice Imogen's arrival. Karen acts all sweet, but then Tabby says that if she wasn't such a narcissist, she would have checked up on Imogen. Karen coldly tells her to get off her ass and says it was traumatizing for her as well, and then recalls running out of the house screaming. She tells Imogen she's here for her, but then pulls her in for a hug and whispers, "People may be polite to you, but trust me, nobody wants your pregnant, tragic ass back here." That's when I was cheering. I was like, hell yes. Horrible, horrible woman. Tabby, or girl in this case. Tabby overheard and asked why she's a bitch about everything. She then escorts Imogen to a corner and says that Karen is a walking, quote-unquote, microaggression. Macroaggression. And there's safety in numbers. Farron Bryant walks into school, completely ignoring Karen. Karen then sees Mouse. So we don't get her name. So there's names that'll come up in this summary that we don't actually get. So I'll try and go around them. But I'm like, wait a minute. We didn't know. I don't think we got that her name was Minnie. And then Minnie's staring at Mouse is staring at a flyer for the school's LGBT club called Spectrum. And then Karen calls her rodent. And is like, well, you don't need to come out. Like, everybody already knows. Karen asks her if she cast her vote yet. And then Mouse flips her the bird, and says, "My name is Mouse," and calls her a dick. She tries to run off, but bumps into Noah, who is wearing an ankle monitor, and agrees Karen and her twin Kelly are evil. Noah delivers a urine test to Nurse Simmons, who asks about her mother, apparently named Marjorie, which I don't think we get that in this, but is also one of the 5 from the flashback, and remarks she misses her, but not the hospital. Noah says she's fine and says hello to Kelly, who's working with Nurse Simmons. Nurse Simmons asks her to say hello to her mother and report back tomorrow with a pee test. Noah meets up with her boyfriend, Sean. We got another Sean, everybody. Are you excited about that?
He was like, oh my God, do you like Noah's boyfriend's name, Sean? And I was like, I literally did not remember that. What is it with that name?
I know. I'm immediately keyed up on this. I'm like, ooh, we got another. She complains that her life is a shit show and she has to count for every minute of the day now. Sean assures her that she only has 3 weeks left, but she's like, no, 3 weeks left with the ankle monitor, but I have to pee in a cup for the rest of the year and community services every day. She said she can't go to the dance this weekend, and Sean replies he thought dances weren't her thing. She's like, they aren't, but I feel bad for you just having to stay at my house with me and not go out. Sean's like, I don't mind, and is your mom like working night shifts again? And then Noah smiles, and he confirms they'll be at her place that night. He leaves, and she begins to walk away, but then hears her phone rings and gets a text. It says, don't do the crime if you don't do the time. Noah texts back demanding who it is and receives the reply, your conscience. She looks around but dismisses the messages.
This A is not fun.
It's inconsistent. There's a couple of these where I was like, Mona? In film class, apparently we didn't get the teacher's name, but apparently in the summary, his name is Mr. Smithy. So this is in my case, there's certain things that I roll with. Alan Smithy is like the pseudonym for like writers that wanted to like disavow their own work. That like cover up. It was like just put under Alan Smithy instead of credited to them. So that's the joke here. I don't think it's used anymore. He hands out papers for the students' latest projects and to partner up and make a short film inspired by a classic film on the list. Tabby raises her hand and she's like, there's no directors of color and there's only 2 women. Mrs. Smithy's like, well, I have to stick to a curriculum that's approved by the board. You can watch what you want on your own time, but I'm sorry, we have to stick to this. And she's like, yes, I agree, actually. And that's why I'm going to start my own film series at the theater I work at. They write the Orpheum in the summary, but I thought it was called something slightly similar because the Orpheum's a famous theater. So like,
I think it's Orpheum instead of Orpheum.
Orpheum?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the subtitle said Orpheum or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Perfect.
So Orpheum.
Yeah. Orpheum being the famous, Orpheum the fake. And then she's like, starting with Jordan Peele's movies. The class resumes and Tabby receives a notification on her phone that says, what's your favorite scary movie? Tabby texts back who this is, and the unknown messenger follows up with Peeping Tom. Classic movie. In literature class, Imogen received... Oh, right. That's what it was. Imogen is books.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd written this down.
Scarlet Letter.
Uh-huh. It's not in the summary. Very glad you picked this up. They're learning about the Scarlet Letter, which is especially hilarious because you mentioned this last night. Was Scarlet Letter only in the books?
I think so. So when we did the books, it was a thing that Arya read the Scarlet Letter. She had her easy A moment, but then she made it like about Meredith, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that what it was?
She instead goes after Meredith. She's like, aha, they were right to get rid of Hester Prynne.
Arya said, I'm a Puritan.
Pretty good.
She's a free-spirited Puritan.
But it's, some nice way to bring this back in because Imogen's pregnant with potentially from someone else's boyfriend, or at least that's what it's hinting at the moment. And then also
you mean to tell me you think Greg might be the father?
I know.
Or Sean? Greg? No, Greg.
Greg. I'm shocked. And then that there's a letter A, scratched on.
Yeah,
so
and the letter A. The A being really good,
It's fun. She receives a text that says, look out the window. She does, and is shocked to see, Leatherface.
I would have screamed and pointed, and I think everyone else would have looked. That? But that's just me. Yeah. I'm just a screamer.
So I'm going to refer to them as Leatherface through this, because they look like the villain from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, at least as far as I know. I've not seen the films. But it looks like skin, right? That they're wearing a skin mask, or at least a leather mask.
He doesn't look pretty,
and in overalls and things.
Or they're not. They don't look pretty.
Mm-hmm. She's shocked to see Leatherface standing in the brush. The teacher calls her name, and Imogen asks what the question was. To the class's laughter, she looks out the window again, but they're gone. Elsewhere, Mouse is at the computer lab when she receives a text. Could Minnie Mouse come out to play? XOXO Mickey. See, that's a pretty good one.
Is it?
I like that one.
Okay. You trying to sext me?
I mean, in my red overalls and gloves.
I'm so sorry to everyone who listens to this podcast.
This is the content warnings, actually.
It's actually just our bad jokes that are the problem.
Yeah, bad jokes.
They're not even jokes.
Unnerved, she calls...
That makes it sound like you do that. Never mind.
Have you ever noticed in the background of the podcast those big, large gloves hanging in the corner? Unnerved, she checks the empty hallways before blocking the caller. Way to go, Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
In ballet class, Madame Geary lists out the roles for the upcoming Swan Lake performance. Kelly gets Odette. Farron gets Odile. And Karen's like,
technically
what about...
it's Odile.
Oh, right. She does say that.
Yeah, and I looked it up. It is correct. It's Odile.
Odile. And then Karen's like, what about me? And it's like, you're a tree.
No, she plays the mother of the love interest. His name starts with a G, and I think, and I can't remember it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't write it down. And then Karen tells Farron that she only got Odette because she's black.
Okay, I'm just going to interject right here. Uh-huh. So, in most professional, I'm sure there's some professional versions that have done it other ways. Yeah. In most ballets, in all versions of Swan Lake that I have seen that were not in a film or a fucking television show, looking at you, Black Swan. And now this.
Darren Aronofsky, you're on notice for many things, but including this.
Odette and Odile are played by the same ballerina. The purpose is that Odette, or that the male love interest in Swan Lake is supposed to believe that Odile is Odette. It's a trick, and he's being tricked so that the Black Swan gets him, and it's like some scandal, and then because if he was with the right swan, then she would be turned back into a princess or whatever the fuck it is. I can't remember the narrative behind it, but the purpose is that the ballerina is almost always the same dancer. It is the same ballerina for both roles. Do I think in some high school performances or pre-professional performances, or I danced at a really small dance studio that we probably to give people more parts would have split it up for fun. Yeah. But this is what looks like a pre-professional ballet studio at a high school on the wrong side of town. I have so many questions, but...
they're performing in a gymnasium, too.
Yeah, it's really... But then they have, this ballet point class with a formal instructor.
Yeah.
It's just... And she has connections to ABT. Mm-hmm. So I have so many questions. Most of which being, what the fuck? But Yeah, it's played by the same ballerina.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing that they do, and they tend to do it in television and movies because it creates this like, oh, the black swan is the main part. And it's like, the role is one role. Both are the main part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also interesting because I think what they're trying to do with it, it's like, why isn't it the twins? You know what I mean? Because then it would look and like, I think it's foreshadowing. I think if it was the twins, it might try to be like some, like, I don't know. There's ways to interpret it that I'm like, okay. But it's a weird choice if you know the ballet. And it's not the first time this has been done.
Again, so
it's one of those
looking at
things
you, Darren Aronofsky.
It's one of those things that just makes me a little mad. Or just like, if it was done on purpose, I think it needed to be explained in the episode for the audience that normally Odette and Odile are played by the same ballerina. Because if this was a choice, then why was that choice made? And I don't think enough people would know that because of the movie Black Swan.
Yeah.
Black Swan in particular made people think that these are two separate roles.
Because I certainly didn't know until you told me.
It's also weird because this dance teacher is very racist, and Brenton will get into that. And yet she gives Farron this main part and then treats her like shit.
Mm-hmm. What's going on there?
And so it's very strange. This whole thing is very strange. And ballet is very racist. And just like statistically. It is like in general. It's racist. It's very hard to get into. It has been traditionally very expensive. Like, I went to a small studio that we didn't compete, and we did it for fun, and it was very different. But if I had wanted to go pre-professional, like, that's a world that is now a little bit more diverse, but has a huge cost to it, and including like social and emotional cost, not to mention like literal financial costs. It's a really weird choice for this high school to have this. And it really throws me out of the story.
Right. Because like I said, this is not the rest of the high school. They're performing in a gymnasium. Like, you can literally see in the set decorations that there's like the remnants of what used to be like a basketball hoop. All of the desks and things are old. Like, everything has like peeling wood paneling. But I really like the set design for it.
Yeah, I know.
But it mismatches exactly what you said.
With this, and also there's quite a few boys in this dance class, which is very rare. A lot of dance studios, I mean, there are obviously a lot of male professional dancers, but at a high school, like, I think if they had ran a ballet class at my high school, you would have maybe gotten one boy, and then whatever members of the football team were told they had to take ballet for their balance.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or something like that. It would not have been
a huge turnout.
Yeah, like this. And so it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting choice. And so I have a lot of questions, and I'm waiting to see if there is intention and purpose behind this, or if it's just kind of like we're using this reference.
Just to throw in there, yeah. Of
and like
the dichotomy between them.
An Odette Odile reference? Is this a Black Swan reference? Like, there's a lot of...
It seems like it's actually trying to point to Swan Lake, but I don't know.
I think it is, and I think there's parts of it that I think I can make the connection, but we haven't watched enough of it yet to be certain.
Right.
And it includes some information that I think like we will get later.
Are we assuming that Kelly is not the perfect student, then like girl that we are led to believe at this point?
I'm saying, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil it for you. Because I was like, no, it's actually like the main trick of the ballet.
Okay.
Like,
yeah,
that you think someone they're not.
Right. So that's what I was just saying. I guess that could also apply to Farron. So that's why I am already suspicious of like the things that we like hear about Kelly and stuff, and like that she is this like perfect like daughter student and things that they're very proud of at this point. They immediately go, okay, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
You're probably just quiet about what you do.
But sorry, okay, continue.
No, perfect.
I just felt like I'd
putting it in.
Interject here because it's not a question for you. It's more of just like I have some feelings.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to have more as we keep going.
Absolutely. And then, so we already got through that. So then Farron gets a text. You're going to slay as the Black Wand. Parentheses. Is that you, Caleb? She looks around to see to see everyone on their phone and asks who it is, and then texts back your number one fan. And then in the hallways, Farron calls her mother, named Corey. Corey is, again, one of the 5 from 1999, is in Pittsburgh, and then she tells her the good news. Farron tells her the good news. Corey is elated. Farron's like, well, you never come to like my high school events. Corey then flashes back to 1999 and the dead body, and then is like, you know what? Actually, I will come.
I'll make an exception.
Imogen is stopped by Sandy in the bathroom and asks what she's going to do with the baby. Imogen has a flashback to her like sitting on the beach, like looking sad, and then Sandy's
empty bottles next to her.
Yes, like an empty Jack Daniels or something.
Yeah.
And then Sandy's voice is going over it. It's just like, is it true that the baby's father was a lifeguard? Interesting.
It's very reminiscent to me of the scene in Big Little Lies where Shailene Woodley is like going back to the beach all the time, like with the trauma, and then we find out it was an assault, which has me thinking that.
What'd you do, Greg? Imogen freaks out and goes to the nurse's office asking for an abortion. She says her and her mother plan to raise the baby, but now like she's changed her mind, Nurse Simmons reminds her that it's 6 months along and is like too late for that. Imogen then sees an image of herself in a bloody tub like her mother and admits she's just overwhelmed. Nurse Simmons urges her to push through the next 3 months. Karen corners Noah and asks to vote for Spirit Queen, but Noah won't. And then Karen's like, oh, well, I'm running out of post. I love that she's stumping out for votes, and even though she's going to win. Karen snidely asks if she's late for community service and gives her sympathy for Noah working alongside those thugs. She tells her to say hi to her father for her. At community service, Sheriff Beasley addresses the delinquents before him that the mayor wants the site cleaned for a redevelopment, and they have to clear all the stuff up. Back at school, Tabby waits for the jocks to exit the boys' locker room before entering it, calling out to make sure it's empty, and then unhooks a GoPro that was underneath the sinks. Tabby arrives late at the Orpheum and apologizes to her boss, Wes. He tells her coworker, Chip, who was in her film class earlier. Chip, I didn't write it in the summary, I ended up removing it, but he Chip, he also backed Tabby up on yeah, we should have a more diverse list. So Chip is probably interested in Tabby.
Because men aren't just nice to you.
Exactly.
That's what I've learned in life.
Wes makes Chip clean up the bathrooms, even though it's supposed to be Tabby's turn. Wes, however, says that Tabby's in charge of popcorn tonight. Noah continues to clean up trash, but since she's being watched, she looks up to see Leatherface staring at her from a building. She yells and that she's going to go report them and beelines to find the sheriff, only to accidentally find him receiving oral sex from a teenage boy in his cop car. He stares her down as she walks away. Listen, if you are a writer writing an edgy teen drama series, apparently the new thing in the 2020s is that you have to have the father figure for the popular character engage in sexual acts with a minor. This is going to be a plot point, and it's non-negotiable. Looking at you, Euphoria, and now the show.
And specifically, it's specifically the father figure. It's a trend. It's certainly interesting. It does keep with our trend, though, of Pretty Little Liars is very ACAB.
Oh, absolutely. And he is a monster.
Yeah, this man is trash.
Which, in comparison to the stuff in Euphoria, which kind of like, well, look at how he became this way. And it's like, okay, we didn't need this. Euphoria. Yeah. So much of a show that I would not recommend, and yet I watched 2 seasons of it happily. So, a show I will never want to talk about. At the Orpheum.
It's like wannabe Skins.
Yeah.
And Skins obviously has its problems.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But, know what you're getting into. Mm-hmm. Skins another one, I guess, that kind of is on the mature end of this, but is way sillier.
Skins also was actual teenagers playing teenagers. There's a lot with Skins that is problematic. And that those actors weren't protected.
No. Yeah, that is a consistent thing, not across this show, but at least the both Skins and Euphoria. It's like, what are you trying to make these actors do?
But Skins
especially
was
women.
Children.
Yeah.
To a certain point,
Mm-hmm. At the Orpheum, Wes and Tabby disagree over De Palma films, and then Wes is like, are you really still in high school? You remind me of my NYU girlfriends, which is even more hilarious to realize that he's probably been out of school for maybe 10 years.
More. Isn't he 35 or whatever?
35. But even if he was like doing like a master's or something like that. Tabby asks if she'll be allowed to host her double feature on Thursday and negotiates terms with her, which he agrees, and then he offers her a ride home after work. Imogen gets the confidence to enter her old house and goes to her mother's bedroom and finds a picture of her sonogram. She begins to tear up and then notices the rave flyer from 1999 underneath the magazine. Noah arrives home where her mother asks her about her community service. And her mom, it's not in the summary, but I believe her mom also has a flashback.
I think so.
And then make sure that Noah's keeping distance from the other kids. And Noah's like, it's the other kids aren't the problem. And
I think it's the other kids are the problem, and it gives, or like other kids, you don't want to be around kids who get you in trouble.
Yeah.
And then the flashback.
Oh, that's okay.
I think is what it is.
Nice. Perfect. Wes parks his car in a like deserted spot of town and then pulls out a cigarette to start smoking. Oh, he's so pathetic. He says what he meant earlier about Tabby was true and she is something special. And like my old professors agreed when I told them about you. Tabby's elated to hear that, and it's like, oh, NYU is my dream school, or else I'd go to like AFI where like Ari Aster and that's where we get that like Ari Aster and Wes are the same age. Wes goes in for a kiss before Tabby notices Leatherface standing in the road. Wes is about to go out of the car to confront them. Let him die. But Tabby warns him not to, and they drive away.
I would have let him.
Yeah, but then you have to see someone get killed, and that's a lot. Tabby finally arrives home. True. You know, that you got to protect your own peace at some point.
Yeah, no, that's a good job. Good call.
Tabby finally arrives home and then is late as her mom notices. Tabby lies that she was taking inventory and that Wes gave her a ride. She tells her mother she ate too much at work and has a lot of homework and goes up to her room, locks the door, then connects the thumb drive from the GoPro to her laptop and then plays her hidden footage of the boys' locker room and then just starts taking notes.
She's doing something weird.
Very weird. She just starts taking notes.
I think that's my favorite part. Like the whole thing, you're like, oh, this creepy girl. And then you're like, what are you writing down?
Right. And then it also adds more to the Peeping Tom reference that we got earlier. So there you go.
She's the Peeping Tom.
Karen looks sullen.
I don't know why I felt like I needed to explain that.
I thought that was Imogen. We get a title card that's Tuesday now. Also, in all the dates and names, all the letters are A.
What? All the A's are like a red A. Like,
all the letters are A.
Like, baby.
How the fuck did you figure out that it was Tuesday then? A. It's like the high score on a video game. Jesus. Karen looks.
This is a good one, huh?
I know. Karen looks solid as Farron and Henry. We don't get his name, but his name's Henry. Practice their choreography, but Madame Geary is unimpressed and asks Farron to come into her office as she dismisses class. Madame Geary tells Farron that she missed last night's practice and won't get into Ailey that way. Farron's like, oh, you probably just said I wanted to get to Ailey because I'm black. Actually, I'm aiming for ABT. Madame Geary says she worries ABT might not accept Farron because of her scoliosis, but she'll keep it a secret.
Okay, so for those of you that are not well-versed in the dance world, Alvin Ailey was a very talented contemporary dancer who started his own dance studio eventually. And the Alvin Ailey, I can't remember if it's like, Alvin Ailey American Dance Company Theater. I can't remember what the formal name is, but it is a contemporary dance company. It is contemporary dance. For those of you that don't know what that means more, not necessarily Martha Graham, but Martha Graham was the kind of like the first contemporary dancer. It's no point shoes. You're not wearing point shoes. You're not doing Swan Lake. Swan Lake is not contemporary dance. That is ballet. That would be what you would perform at ABT, which is American Ballet Theater. ABT in 2015 received its first ever black principal ballerina, Misty Copeland, who is amazing. And it was tragic that it took until 2015 to have a black principal dancer. But so it is strange to me because at the time of the show, we already know that there is a role model for Farron to look up to that looks like her, in a sense. Like that she has very little, but some representation at ABT. And these are two completely different schools of dance. We have not seen any of the girls do contemporary dance. We have only seen ballet, traditional ballet point.
Mhm.
Like that's it. Not even like here's like a lyrical contemporary and offshoot. Just ballet. So I have a lot of questions about this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. At the very least, Madame Geary is...
It's a racist remark, and that's the purpose of it. But it's also just like there was more to play with in that to give us more context that they didn't do. That I understand not over-explaining your references, but once again, I think if you're going to pick from an industry that isn't necessarily like the public is more well-versed in horror movies than they are in ballet when they're watching a horror movie or a horror show.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect them to explain every horror reference. I don't expect them to explain every dance reference, but I think explaining a handful of them might have helped for like you had no idea what that interaction meant. Besides, she was being racist.
Exactly.
But you didn't really you only knew she's being racist because Farron said, because I'm black.
Uh-huh.
If Farron had not said, oh, because I'm black, you wouldn't have known what Alvin Ailey was versus ABT.
Rather than just being like, well, I'm training to be a ballerina, not contemporary dance.
Which I think would have been an interesting call out too, to like play with the like watching the teacher struggle with the like, oh, but like the racism aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
it's on multiple layers. It's like you're completely dismissing me from even being a part of the ballet world.
Mm-hmm. But I do believe later in the show we'll get a Misty Copeland reference. So I just wanted to also, not in this episode, but in other episodes, like just so everyone understood who Misty Copeland was.
There you go. All right. So then a boy named Ash Romero, introduces himself to Mouse. Okay, so Ash Romero, I now get this. Ash from Evil Dead, and then Romero as in George Romero. Okay. Introduced himself to Mouse, saying he's noticed her checking out the posters for a Spectrum Club, the LGBTQ club, and encourages her to join. Mouse isn't a big fan. It's like, oh, I'm not. She says like I'm not like into that, and then Ash says it's a safe space and they have great snacks, and then Mouse is convinced and is invited to lunch with him. Principal Clanton, at least the principal, calls in Imogen and asks if she's doing okay. And it's like, I talked to Nurse Simmons and she expressed concerns about your well-being. He's like, Millwood might not be equipped to offer you support that you might need. And Imogen's like, don't kick me out. He's like, no, I'm not kicking you out. I love this interaction. It's like, I'm just concerned about like the rest of the students. And he says some are triggered, quote unquote, by your presence. And Imogen's like, who? Imogen storms into the cafeteria and confronts Karen in front of everyone. Karen plays innocent, concerned this might not be the right environment for someone in Imogen's quote unquote condition. Imogen demands to know what she did to piss Karen off and then turns to Greg and is like, can't you just tell her the truth, admit the truth? And then he's like, and Karen snaps and says she doesn't belong here and she isn't the only person who feels that way. Imogen's like, I'm not going anywhere. And in fact, I'm going to be Spirit Queen like my mom, not you. At the Beasley household, Martha, being Kelly and Karen's mom, asks her daughters how school was. Kelly states it was fine, and Karen complains that everybody's insane, particularly Imogen Adams and this girl who took her dance spot, and then her dad, the sheriff, cuts her off and says, better than you. He's like, look around at all the nice things we have in this house, and it's like, do you know why we have it? Because I'm the best at what I do, and then demands that she be the best if she wants what she wants. Mouse is excited to see a message request from Ash on Discord. Then her mom is like, I don't like you spending so much time online. And it's like, there's bad people online there. She also has, I think, a brief flashback around this point because she also was part of the girls. Mouse is too overjoyed, though, to like worry about her mom's words. At a pizza place, Karen talks to Greg and is like, well, you need to get a suit for like the dance because I don't want you just in your stupid Letterman jacket when I'm crowned Spirit Queen. He's like, you can't just talk to me like this. And they get in an argument and he's like, you can't talk to me like I'm your mom. And Karen's like, my mom is pathetic and calls her dad a cocksucker. Greg is dismissive of her ballet and complaining, and then she kicks him underneath the table. She's like, I don't question like your football skills, even though you lose every single game. And then Greg just gets up and leaves. Farron attends late night practice before she's startled by the reflection of Leatherface looking at her in the mirror. She turns around to find it empty and the hallways outside the room empty. Tabby is impressed by Imogen's boldness and calling Karen a bitch in front of everybody, though the Imogen sees herself as a teen tragedy. She confesses to Tabby she had a series of panic attacks, threw up, and asked for an abortion that day. She's like, I went back to my house, though, later and found a flyer for a flyer for a party from 1999, and it's like, I just have no idea why my mom would kill herself. Like, we were gonna raise this baby together. She was happy. We had plans. And Tabby's like, well, did she leave a note? And Imogen says no, and shows Tabby the sonogram about that. And then Tabby says, for what it's worth, you should run for Spirit Queen, and worst case scenario, we make Karen sweat. And then late at night at Millwood High, apparently the janitor's name is Jesse, calls out to Leatherface walking through the school. He follows them into an offshoot building where he finds a table littered with a bunch of object bottles, a teddy bear, duct tape, an empty urine bottle, ballet slippers, no scrawled over Karen's flyers, and then a live mouse. Jesse decides to call the sheriff, but then the figure suddenly bolts towards him, grabs a knife, and slices his throat.
Jesse also had checked out Farron when he walked by when she was on the phone. I don't know if that was in your recap.
No, I had actually removed it from the summary, but I should have kept it there.
So Jesse was also, like, at least from Farron's perspective, we think, oh, he's a creep.
Yeah, she was obviously weirded out by it in that scene. He gets his throat sliced, but then we get like loud screamings outside the building. Anyways, on Wednesday, Imogen and Tabby arrive at school to find Karen's posters defaced and replaced with one supporting Imogen, and the second A in her name is highlighted in red. Whoa. The girls immediately blame Karen for it, and the principal calls them into the office. In science lab, Karen reaches into her bag and comes up with her fingers wet with blood. She screams and kicks the bag forward, and a bloody dead mouse falls onto the floor. Mouse is then confronted by a computer science teacher who says that the principal wants to see her about Karen finding a dead mouse in her bag. Nurse Simmons tells Noah that she found traces of cannabis in the pee, and Noah denies this. Instead of calling Sheriff Beasley, she called her mother, and then in ballet class, Karen screams in pain and finds her ballet shoes have been filled at the end with razor blades and accuses Farron of doing this. All these girls are then placed in detention. Imogen tells Tabby that they shouldn't be there, and Farron's like, wait, were you the ones that trashed Karen's posters? And they're like, we wish we did, but we did not. Karen did it to send us a message, and she sent a very specific message to me, and then has a flashback to the letter A drawn in blood next to her dead mom. Doesn't tell everybody else, though. Farron says she thinks Karen put razor blades in her own ballet shoes to get her kicked out. Noah's then surprised, and it's like, well, maybe Karen switched my drug test with like...
She says maybe Karen's sister.
Yeah, Kelly.
Because
right.
Kelly works with the nurse.
Right. She got her sister involved to switch the tests. Imogen all because she didn't vote for Spirit Queen, and Imogen's like, that's probably enough. Noah reveals that before Karen got with Greg, she heard that she tried to get with her boyfriend. Imogen confirms that, yes, she did chase after Sean. Mouse confesses that Karen found a dead rat in her bag, and she's like, I didn't do it myself, but ever since I introduced myself to Karen as Mouse, she's been calling me Rodent. And then thinks that Karen's retaliated against her when she called Karen a basic Barbie and flipped her off. The girls begin to plot revenge, and Tabby asks what they should do, and then Imogen answers, I think we should kill Karen Beasley.
Do you think we're going to get a musical episode on this show like we do on Riverdale?
Oh, that'd be fun. And probably not, just because it's so tight.
Yeah.
Where Riverdale, it's like, we got to fill up 22 episodes.
All right. You ready?
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. I organized these mostly by girl.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Imogen. The father?
I think Greg.
Okay. That's me too.
That's where it seems to be pointing right now. And I'm assuming, like your point, it could have been like an assault.
Mm-hmm. Why does Karen hate Imogen so bad? Just because she's a bitch and her life is bad?
No, I think it's related to Greg.
Okay.
And all of her insecurity around that. And that now Imogen is this walking reminder of that too with the baby. That Imogen didn't get rid of it. And then blames Imogen for doing that. And Imogen never apologized to her for it or not apologized, but never like really, I don't think she like ever like made up for it in Karen's mind. That's my assumption.
Okay. Davy's death. Suicide or murder?
Oh, absolutely murder.
Okay.
I think murder 100%. But it's interesting that none of the other moms ended up dead in this episode. I thought it was curious that Davy was the first one, but I guess Davy was the one being like, Sid, leave Angela alone.
Was she the instigator?
Yeah, it kind of seems that way.
She was the queen bee in a sense.
Yeah, that's what the sense I got, that like Davy was the Allison. of that group, because she's like, Sid, we talked about this in that first scene, is like very like harsh about the situation.
Mm-hmm. Tabby, what the fuck is she doing with the videos from the boys' locker room?
I don't know. I'm assuming it's maybe going too far, because it doesn't seem like
it's research.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
How boys behave when they're by themselves.
Yeah, and it's like
what men do outside of the female gaze, or like something like that.
Maybe, yeah, when they're like all alone to like get authenticity for her own script or something.
She's trying to get the locker room talk.
Yeah, pretty much. That she, yeah, like 100% there. Like it doesn't seem like voyeuristic pleasure. It's
it doesn't seem sexual in nature.
It's just the voyeuristic as like the peeping in on.
I mean, it's
lives.
Sexual harassment, but it doesn't seem like.
100%.
I don't seem like, yeah.
It's so wild. It's such a wild thing for her to be doing.
It's Wes Ezra's brother, Wes.
Oh yeah, I remember you mentioned this. Big if true. I really hope so. That'd be fantastic if that's how this wrapped back around.
Does preying on high school girls run in the family?
It would seem so, if that is the case. Oh, it's so good. He is like, I like when I say Wes is so good, they do such a good job at making him just seem pathetic. And like, she's too young to notice this. Like his smooth.
Well, she kind of wants to use him. Like, he's got
true.
those connections. Even if she sees through it, I think she was uncomfortable.
Right.
But I think it's also like, oh, wait, you talked to a professor about me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to use that connection because you're told to network, and that's how you get ahead in life. And especially as a woman and like a young girl, like you don't realize that a lot of the times you're doing that, the man you are talking to, man specifically, is trying to use you for other ways and is using their connections or like their knowledge or their access to try to manipulate you.
Yeah. And it's so blatant just how like pathetic this guy is. Like again, like, oh, you're just like my own old NYU girlfriends. But again, he's been out of college for like a while. And he's like talking about things that are not in his existing orbit. It's very much the film school version of the jock from high school reminiscing about the old days for like football, like what you usually see of like, yeah, back when I ruled this town. That's kind of what he's doing, but with this vague place that's like far away, so you can't really confirm any of this. Talking to this high schooler about like, wow, you're so mature.
It's just like the college girls I used to date.
Yeah, and it is nothing's contemporary.
This man all peaked in college.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. And there's just a way he like pulls over too and like pulls out a cigarette, just like trying to be the cool guy. Also, the other thing, his because on their name tags at the theater, they have their favorite movies. His is Reservoir Dogs. That's like the most like college movie on the face of the planet. If you're listen, just vet people, whoever you're dating, if their favorite movie is a Quentin Tarantino movie and it's not Jackie Brown, you should be concerned.
Thank you. See, I wouldn't have done that because I just used the 500 Days of Summer test. I would show boys, especially in like early college era. If I showed you 500 Days of Summer and you told me Summer was the villain, I knew that this was not going to work. Because if the roles were reversed, you would have told me also Summer was the villain.
Right.
So, you know, that was my litmus test. I don't know how like topical that is. I haven't watched that movie in probably like 10 years, but
it's been a while.
It was my go-to. Okay, let's talk about Mouse. Why did Ash seek her out?
So,
is this a pure kindness? Is it sketch?
It does seem like it could. Okay, no. Again, the show, right? It could be absolutely sketch. But I assumed it was a kindness, and that she is now developing feelings for someone that is not interested in women. Since he's like, oh, you should come to Spectrum.
Yeah.
Sign up for Spectrum. And she is like over the moon, obviously has a crush. But so that's what I assume that's going. But again, it could be, that's just my reading off of one episode, you know?
Yeah. We don't know these people yet.
Yeah. Mouse definitely the one that lacks the
character development.
Yeah, exactly. There's not much going on with Mouse yet.
We weren't given anything.
She's just a loner and is good at computers.
Yeah. I almost wondered if she was supposed to give off, oh my gosh, what's her name from Breakfast Club vibes.
Oh no.
Uh-huh.
We watched this recently, so I should know.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh no. I gotta look this up now.
Oh, when you love something, I set it free. I just go, it'll come back.
But I have to know.
You have to know.
God. It is Ali Sheedy.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, oh, is this supposed to be like, not quite, obviously, like, but is this going to become that kind of character where they're quiet, but then they're saying like outlandish things just for fun, like kind of like playing with it.
Mm-hmm.
It just gave like that energy.
Totally. Yeah, I completely get it.
Because we get a very like Breakfast Clubby scene in how they all get together in detention that I was like, oh, this was intentional.
Yeah. Yeah, you could practically hear the music playing over it.
Yeah. Noah, what did our girlie do to get an ankle monitor?
Yeah, and it has to be drug related because she's getting drug tested all the time. Unless I don't know if you get drug tested for other house arrest sort of things.
I don't know.
So maybe I could be wrong there. But I assumed she got in trouble with like holding drugs, possessing drugs. And that's like why there's this concern. You got to stay away from the people on the wrong side of the tracks. But Sean's a jock, right? Her boyfriend? Because he's wearing the Letterman jacket. So I don't know when
But we know the football team's not good.
That's true.
So it's not like a feeder school for a university. It's just the ballet teacher has connections to ABT.
Right. But just in terms of like make sure you stay away from those kids. And maybe she started dating him later because it is like, oh, before I was dating Sean, I don't know. Anyways, that I assumed that she maybe she was like, got caught with drugs and was maybe running with a different sort of crowd. It's a little unclear. I don't really know what Noah kind of does because I mean, Noah's not doing anything now. Like that's that's purposeful because she does community service and then goes home.
Okay, Farron, why is this crazy dance teacher threatening Farron with her childhood scoliosis?
I know.
If she has scoliosis and is dancing, is she not in pain? Because if she's not in pain and she's fine, then it's fine. If she's in pain, should she be dancing? And should her mother, you know what I mean? Like, what is this? Because there's a certain aspect to sports, like dance, gymnastics. I mean, every sport, I guess. There's lots of sports depending on your injury that, like, you injure a certain part of you, you can no longer do that safely. And that's really hard for people that love what they do because, like, you love what you do. Like, you can't do it. Or you have to adapt to what you do or you have to change it. And so the idea that it's like, oh, you could dance for Alvin Ailey but not ABT makes almost no sense. Like, your scoliosis.
Right.
And that she's using it as a threat. It's obviously not her ability. It's that, like, they're not going to want you because you're injured, which is a valid, you know what I mean? Like, it's a valid manipulation tool. But
if she's fine.
Yeah. Is she fine?
I assume all of that is Farron doesn't look like her, but seems like Farron could succeed her in that she would be doing better than her. Like, we don't know. I'm assuming that Madame Geary did not go to ABT. And so that is a threat of like, oh, why that you could surpass me when, like, I'm assuming this is making tons of assumptions.
Yeah.
But it could be like that she's like looking at like Kelly and it's like, oh, Kelly's not as talented as Farron, but in my mind, she's the one that should be actually going on to APT or something like that. Like the white girl that is similar to me and the good girl where Farron doesn't meet that mold as much. So like I take it out on her as her mentor. That's what I'm assuming we going. Again, very high level at this point because it's one episode in, but that's what I'm assuming. And then also whatever's going on with Farron and maybe her mom is maybe in politics or doing something important.
Yeah, she's not around or she's far away. We don't know how far Pittsburgh is, but
I really don't know Pennsylvania geography.
Based on how far it was in Pretty Little Liars universe, it was like an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so this is near there. So.
Right, because then she would have to be coming in. It's like, oh, you can come see my things. So maybe that's also another thing. It's like she's some important person's daughter. So then that's an extra thing of like, how dare you succeed?
Is she, or is her mom just working in the city?
It could be. Yeah, it could just be I work in the city.
Or like an executive, or even just like a, not executive, but like a mid-level manager in a city.
Totally, yeah. That, I just assumed. I'm like, oh.
Like we used to commute an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We commute in the city. Yeah.
Yep. That's what I was thinking about. I also, my only other like dance complaint, which I'm sure everyone is tired of this, but
no, that's what they're here for.
When Farron is rehearsing by herself in the studio, which is fine, they only show her feet, or they show her. So to me, it's obvious that this actress has not been taught to do point, or they didn't want to show her. I'm not certain. Maybe there's just camera angle choices, but to me, that's usually a sign in like a dance or like a movie where it's like, okay, they don't have the full image of her on point. But she is wearing her tights over her leotard, which is a thing professional dancers will do for rehearsals. And I went to a studio where we didn't have a uniform, so I could have worn that if I wanted to. But if I had shown up with tights over my leotard, my dance teacher would have yelled at me, because like professional dancers do it. They say it's more comfortable, and like I believe them. You know what I mean? Like I think it is more comfortable for them, and you don't get like the bulges, and there's lots to it. But like it is when you are taking classes at a studio, and most studios and schools have uniforms, you are required to dress a very specific way as a pre-professional or like a student dancer. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny because then once they become professional, you see dancers like show up, like I'm sure everyone on TikTok, like when ballet corps was doing its thing, it's like you see like them cutting their tights to wear over the leotard, and like they're wearing like 3 different pairs of pants that they take off at various times as they get too hot and stuff like there's, you can have lots of fun with the clothes, and that's fine. Like I love dance aesthetic. I think it's very fun. And it was my wardrobe for a long time. And like I said, I went to a studio without a uniform, but there's some aspects of it that I'm like, this is usually a moniker of a professional ballerina.
Right.
Like when you see someone wearing tights over their leotard, you're like, oh, they're taking like a professional class. Like and it's kind of almost like it's not a status thing, but like that's what it reads to me. So it's like, are we reading that as she's a really talented dancer? Or is it just like, oh, we know that this is how professional dancers dress. Like this is the style. Uh-huh. And so we want to dress her that way. So it's just interesting because I was like, I wasn't sure how to read that. And I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be reading it, or if costuming was just like, do you want to wear the tights over?
Right, exactly. It could, yeah. Here's our shorthand for what dancers are supposed to look like.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, here's what, when you look up like professional dancers in ballet class, what they're wearing.
But I mean, it totally could be something of like the way that maybe even Madame Geary thinks of the team, the company, or she thinks of it maybe as a company, right? Of like the way she runs it, of like this grandiose thing when she is this professional thing, even when it is again in a gymnasium.
Which also, like I said, like you're allowed to not have uniforms and wear, but I didn't even wear tights half the time. But it just was funny to me because it's one of those things that like is really like sometimes like a point of contention as dancers get better, that they're like, oh, like I don't want to have to wear my tights under my leotard anymore. Obviously on the stage you always wear your tights under your leotard, like, or your tutu and how like the briefs or whatever. But it was just funny. I was just like, I wonder what this choice is. Right? Like, what is the purpose behind this choice?
No, yeah, I think you walking through that makes me think like, oh, this is the way Madame Geary I expected Madame
calling
Geary, herself Madame Geary.
Well, I thought, or is it Farron thinking like, oh, I want to, like, I'm rehearsing by myself. It's not class right now, so I'm dressed how I would if I was at ABT as a professional dancer.
Dress for the job you want.
Exactly. And then like I expected Madame Geary to like yell at her for it or something, because like, you know, but then that,
oh, you think you're an ABT.
Exactly. Like, oh, like you like we have a uniform for a reason kind of energy. But that wasn't the case. So then I was like, oh, this probably has no relevance, and I'm just digging in where there isn't a reason to.
I'm, at least for what we see on screen as a piece of world building, that's something, right?
And I'm sure there are a lot of dancers that have watched this, and a lot of people do dance growing up, but I was looking out to see if I could find like a Reddit thread or anything on it, and I couldn't find anything. So like if anyone sees anything about the nuance of specifically like the dance and like Farron's whole relationship with dance, I'd love to see it, because I was having a hard time finding anything to be like, I kind of want to see if someone would like explain where it goes.
And I think even if there is no specific explanation in the show, I think you've found meaning within it of like what that means for potential characters and stuff. So something to keep an eye on.
Karen and Kelly next. I'm doing the twins together. What the fuck is wrong with their dad? Like
absolute nightmare of a person.
Nightmare.
you know, I don't know if we'd necessarily need. Well, we don't need the you know, sexual abuse in the car of like, but he is absolutely everything. Again, going like you mentioned earlier, PLL, all cops are bastards. He is manipulative, controlling, and he takes pride in being the
biggest bully in the room.
Exactly. The biggest bully in town. He's like, I'm the best at what I do, which is crushing everybody underneath me. That is compelling.
Also, if he's the best cop or whatever, why is he the one doing community service? Anyway, doesn't
that is true.
Like, I would think that'd be a job you wouldn't want to do.
Yeah. Well, he's the sheriff, though.
That's true.
Yeah, so
if he's the sheriff, is this an unincorporated? This implies that it's an unincorporated part of town because.
Oh, right.
You have your county sheriffs and you have your police departments. I mean, I guess I don't know who runs community service. It might always be the county because it might always be the sheriff. That could have been a misread there. But I was like, or is this an unincorporated part of town?
What's also interesting too about their house is that it's very austere and like plain, like again, like lots of older things, but there's like crucifix up on the wall. Like it's very low lighting. Like it has this really oppressive feel.
Love that. Okay, why is Karen obsessed with being Spirit Queen and number one, but Kelly doesn't give a shit? It seems like Kelly doesn't give a shit about anything.
No, they're in a pressure cooker of an environment of their home to constantly succeed. Where Kelly, I think, has things come to her more easily. Karen has to work for them.
When Kelly keeps her mouth shut.
Right, and I think that's part of it is that Kelly is able to keep her mouth shut and do things. Like, Kelly gets cast as Odette, whereas Karen, who...
The innocent.
Right.
The pure.
So we think so far. But also then we get, Tabby being like, both of them are horrible. So we'll find out more on Kelly.
Yeah, what do you, like...
But I think it's that things come more easily to Kelly.
Okay.
And so she's able to, like, fly more under the radar because she succeeds, whereas Karen is fighting tooth and nail and... because she's probably also been compared to her sister all the time, who is succeeding, is extremely insecure and then bitter and puts that onto everybody else.
Did Kelly swap the pee?
I don't think that they're involved at all.
You think? Because there was the cup on the table. Like, I think so all of that could have been done by our A.
Yeah, and it's...
But are they involved with our A?
Right. I don't think so. I'm assuming that all of Karen's finger pointing is crimes of opportunity.
Okay. What happened to the janitor's body?
Yeah, truly. Maybe he's just in that annex that nobody goes to, where
our friend had set up their little A lair.
What is it? Raymond. What was it in The Perfectionist? Already lost it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, A's lair, as shown in the credits too, and in this, is way more ominous. Black hoodies, get out of here. Pictures on the wall, no. This looks like what you would see, again, like haunted house, serial killer, all that sort of stuff.
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Serial killer core. It's when we made the comparison to like prestige thrillers and things like that. This is more closely in terms of like production design and things like that to that. So like what you would see in like True Detective.
And I have one final question for you. Why don't the girls know that their moms were friends in high school?
Yeah.
Have none of them read a yearbook?
Probably not. Like I didn't look at my parents' yearbooks.
Oh, I did.
Well, and especially,
I knew all my mom's friends from high school. You know what I mean?
Right. And especially if...
Those are my ladies.
I know. Yeah, close friends. Well, see, they could also just be like, ditch the yearbooks in general because it's this horrible time. And then every time you see a yearbook, every single time they're reminded of something, they're still thinking about Angela's dead body.
Yeah, that's true.
So why keep things around?
Okay.
I don't think there's anything else. I just wanted to do a quick little looky-loo through my things here. As it going off of our iPhone discussion in previous, A's texts come in green.
They do.
Yeah, they're not iMessages. Yeah, I think that's kind of everything. So we might.
This is the first show I've seen of Riverdale doesn't have cell phones, does it? Sabrina doesn't have cell phones, does it? Do they have cell phones and I just don't remember?
Interesting.
I feel
don't think
the
they do.
Archieverse is very timeless, like intentionally.
So I think it's all payphones and things and like landlines. I don't think there's cell phones. Wait.
Are there cell phones?
There might be cell phones, and maybe they just like slowly filter out.
I can't remember. Or did they filter in? You know what I mean? Like,
oh, maybe.
I can't remember. We'll have to look.
I was trying to remember if there's something with like Archie's plotline in season 1 around cell phones.
I'll look it up, but you can move.
Okay. Move on to the one last thing that is Karen and Greg are just an all-time worst couple. It is such horrible vibes radiating off of both of them. But anyways, we've got something new for this theory corner here, so let's pull it up.
They do have cell phones, I believe, because someone talks about like that Archie and Betty are using the 5E or whatever the expensive ones.
Oh, okay.
Like Archie has the
they must
SE. You know what I mean? Like it's like the whole like who has what money.
Okay, interesting. All right. Well, everybody, please come join us for Brenton's After School Detective Club. Hey, welcome in. Mr. Smith lets us use this classroom, so just please be mindful and clean up after yourselves. But everybody, thanks for coming. This is Brenton's Detective Club. We're able to come and work on mysteries and stuff like that. So invite your friends. Everybody's welcome. It's cool.
Oh, I thought this was detention.
Oh.
Was that the next room?
Oh, yeah, I think it's the next room.
Okay, bye. What do you got for us in Detective Club, baby?
All right, not much, but we'll go off what we got. So, all right, so
you only got one episode to work off of.
Original sin tied back to the like I said, I think the Pretty Little Liars in this are the
I just got
mothers.
that the title of the show is that the original sin is what the mothers did.
You're what do you think that means?
I literally never thought about it. I don't think about titles.
Yeah, sometimes you're just oh, there it goes.
Yeah, it just. Mm-hmm. I was oh,
works.
Okay, sorry. I'm sure you all already knew that.
So it goes back to the moms are all the Pretty Little Liars in this scenario, and it seems like this new Leatherface has something to do with Angela dying and is bringing all the girls together on purpose around a common enemy, and then also targeting the moms, or at least just targeting Davy so far. Maybe we'll get the other moms in there too, but I'm wondering if what they're trying to do is aim them at the mean girls in school. Is turn them into their version of avenging angels to kind of get back at the mean girls that had something to do with Angela, or that that pushed Angela to be this way. So targeting Karen, potentially targeting Kelly. If there's these ways that kind of come up to try and push them toward that certain stuff, and then while doing this, having that reflect back to the moms about where their their kids are at on look at does this feel good of essentially, your daughters are against you.
So do you think that Karen then is not involved at all in her handing Davy the note on her door is purely a coincidence?
Yes.
Okay.
I also noticing, again, this is, you can't take PLL's word for this, noticing the build, this person was about as tall as the janitor. So I'm also curious about what that means if it's potentially an adult. Actually, one that I have, so I don't think this quite works as well, but one of my first thoughts was oh, what if it doesn't work because they're it's pointing them at Karen, and this doesn't work with how I did it, but it's what if it's a different sort of thing? It's what if it's say Karen and Kelly's mom or something like that. It's one of the parents or something in orbit that way. It's got to have something to do with Angela, and I'm assuming it's potentially a sibling or something coming after them. Sorry, excuse me for clearing my throat there. That is pushing them to kind of do these sort of things. It's I hear we don't know what the rest of the genealogy or who Angela even is.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be some sort of brother or sister related to them that's kind of like doing this and pushing them. And that's about it, though. I mean, I don't have that much to go on yet, but that's my question. So I'm keeping an eye out for the two people actually that I'm not necessarily suspicious for this, but like we'll see how this evolves. Is like Kelly, like what else are you up to? And also, is her mom as like kind of like beat down and pushed down as much as she is? Like where do they come into this?
Mm-hmm.
Because her mom was not part of that group.
Mm-hmm.
What was her role in high school? Maybe she was also, this person could be a good friend of Angela's. So
I like it.
We shall see.
All right.
Thank you so much for attending our first edition. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
We've started.
Whirlwind episode.
Now we can watch the next two because I know you were really excited. Brenton really wanted to keep watching. And I was like tired because like you have to take in writing questions is very easy in comparison to like writing a summary. I'm aware of that. But taking in who all the characters are to then figure out the dynamics to like think through how I want to lead the discussion and like what I want to nudge you towards versus what I don't or is hard when I'm like, I don't know any of these people. And like, I kind of remembered the summary and then I kind of had to like Google things to make sure I like still, like I knew what I thought I knew. Cause I also don't want to ever like lead you directly into something on purpose. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And then be like, oh, well, gave you that away.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't like spoilers.
No.
As we've learned.
Yeah. And I will say it different this time. I think it worked much better for my enjoyment and watching of just editing down the copy from the fandom, so I'm not looking at the web page, which made me literally motion sick last time. So weird. But I could
like
actually
black
watch
writing
it.
on a white or black background with white writing. It can be really, I think, hard.
Yeah. So just being able to take like regular notes and watch it was a much easier time.
Nice.
So that's good.
Well,
yeah, and I will say I understand if people were also thrown off by this show because it's so much more of a horror show than a soap opera.
It's nothing like Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah.
And so like to me, I think that's like, Riverdale to me feels more like Pretty Little Liars than this does. And so when you say it was the creator of Riverdale, I know he can make a light, campy, silly show that still has a murder mystery because I've watched it.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like,
oh, they're doing something different here.
He's going in a and I'd read like that's why I hadn't been like super like pushing to watch it by myself before we got to here, because I was like, oh, it's going to scare the shit out of me. I don't want to watch this by myself. I got scared watching Ravenswood. Like,
there were some times.
There were some jump scares.
Yeah. And also, you bring up Ravenswood. Never have I been super excited about a show from the first episode. So, who knows what might happen.
My God, I'll never forget you being like, I love this. And I was like, oh, shit.
I was like, the possibilities. And the possibilities were limited, it turns out.
I feel like that's a lot of, because I really like a good beginning, like even with a book, like I've read a lot of books that the beginnings aren't great and I've had to power through. So I have no problem with when a show does not start. It's like a lot of shows, even like the first season is kind of, it is what it is and has to kind of find its footing.
Yeah.
I think that this show has footing. Like I don't feel that way about this. Like I don't feel like it's floundering. It's not necessarily to my taste, which is my only really point of contention there.
But it's hitting the vibe it's aiming for.
Exactly. I don't think it's not doing what it intends to do. But yeah, Ravenswood. We loved it, but we hated it. I was so miserable when we finished. Like as we were trying to finish it. I was happy when we finished, but I was miserable getting there. I was so excited to have a conclusion and there wasn't one. And I knew there wasn't one, but I let myself get excited anyway.
Yeah, you're just looking forward to the end.
It's true. Well,
you can find this podcast on all your audio podcast platforms of choice at Dead Ends. You can also find us on YouTube at dead_ends. If you'd like to send us a message, an email, questions, send it to depictions@gmail.com.
If there's spoilers, just label it so that I can read it and Brenton won't.
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
I love spoilers. You can tell me anything you want. You got a theory. You're like, hey, watch for this scene. You should ask him about this question. Send it to me.
Yeah.
You can email it. You can send it on my Instagram that's linked in our link tree. My link tree. It's not our link tree.
Yeah, your link tree.
We have separate link trees.
In the podcast description. And if you do send an email, send it with spoiler. Also, it'd be good that at the end of all this, if we get enough, we can do a questions episode, and you can just include questions from all Pretty Little Liars.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have questions, make sure to get those in.
Who's the prettiest? Who's the liarist?
That's right.
Who is the best liar?
Who's the littlest? Oh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Spencer.
They all vote Arya in the show.
Oh, that's true, actually. Arya's really good.
I always think Mona, too, but is she a liar?
Well, that's true. Point of contention.
Anyway.
I would say yes. Well, sometimes, though.
I've interrupted the plugs, but...
I think that was it.
I think you got it all.
Yeah. So, wait, you had a new sign-off for us.
Yeah, but it's for Riverdale.
Oh, shit. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that doesn't make sense for this one.
No, it doesn't work at all.
Oh, God, what do I want to do? Oh, well, we'll stick with the old one for now, and then we move on, and we'll think of a new one, but we're still here. Find out everything.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Me too.